So this channel is about narrative fiction, and some of the people here might not have played Kenshi, despite it being an excellent piece of interactive fiction. That being said, there will be spoilers. So this whole series of videos started because somebody wanted to know who the villain in Kenshi was. And after taking a bit of a meander through the Shek Kingdom, let's get back to the question at hand. Are the Holy Nation villains in the narrative story of Kenshi? Yup, you betcha. Are they incredibly rich and well-written villains, with justifications for how ordinary people can do evil things? Yup, you betcha. Let's start off with why they are evil. For one, they are bigots. They hate robots, i.e. skeletons, and will kill them on sight. They strongly dislike the Shek and Hivers, and will only tolerate them as slaves. And secondly, they are misogynists, who believe all women must be controlled, lest they be free to do something evil. And yet, there might be some reasons as to how the religion might have started from a reasonable place, but was corrupted into the good old Aukronite dogma we know today. Starting off this long list of reasons are legends from the Age of Chaos. After the destruction of the behemoths, the skeletons were said to have sought vengeance for humanity's destruction of the enormous robots that had defended humanity in its earlier wars. This vengeance, it is speculated, is the reason for the ecological damage Kenshi is facing, and that speculation seems to track logically. If I'm a robot, and I'm at war with humanity, it seems like a pretty good strategy to make the planet inhospitable to life. And then, hey presto, it's a skeleton playground. It's also therefore likely that this bit of history has passed down through the doctrine of the Okronites, and is what gives them their dogmatic view of skeletons. Once, skeletons posed an existential threat to humanity. That threat may have passed, but because the scripture lives on, so does the Holy Nation's fear of technology. But why might the Holy Nation hate other races? Well, we know during the Second Empire, the Sheks were known as enforcers. They were a warrior class given status by the Mad Emperor Catelyn. The Holy Nation was born through fighting a rebellion against the Second Empire, and in this rebellion, they would have had to have fought the Sheks in order to gain independence from skeleton rule. There's no doubt that this fighting would have led them to resent the Shek, and while that reason hasn't passed all the way down to them through scripture, the animosity has. What about women? This one doesn't have a straightforward justification, but there is a reason why it exists, and that reason is all too human. Let's say you are a priest of the Holy Nation, just an Okronite dude trying to live his life and rise through the ranks of society. Problem is, there are all these people you need to compete with. Now, you can try and do things in an honest way and succeed on your own merit, or you could block a whole group who might compete with you by scapegoating them. Sure, you and I would never do that, but there might be someone out there who will, and it only takes one corrupt priest to change a tradition forever. So if I'm an Okronite priest, and success is what I'm after, and I'm not afraid to step on someone on my way to the top, I am going to make sure that the only people who are allowed to gain power in society are Greenlander males. Thus, my pool of competition is as small as it can be. And after all, women are agents of darkness. Duh. So let's parse all this with a little parable of our own. Some scientists were doing an experiment where they had a group of chimpanzees in a pen, and in this pen was a ladder. The ladder, at its top, had a bunch of bananas. The top of the ladder was also electrified, so that if any chimp were to climb up the ladder and get the bananas, that chimp would receive an electric shock. This shock was strong enough to deter any individual from venturing up there and retrieving the bananas, and so the monkeys quickly learned not to even bother trying. The researchers then began swapping out the chimpanzees one by one, and each time they did so, the new chimpanzees, having not yet learned that the ladder was electrified, would attempt to take the bananas for themselves. Other chimps, not having the language to warn the new individuals of the danger, would attack, until the new chimp got the message that the fruit of the ladder was not to be touched. The scientists did this until all the chimpanzees had been replaced, and no individual had ever received an electric shock. Yet, none of them would venture up the ladder for fear of reprisal from the group. The researchers then turned the electricity off, and still, none of the apes went for the fruit, even though the danger had passed. These chimpanzees are just like the Okronites. Their fears have turned into a religion, and even though the things they fear may no longer be a danger to them, they are unable to break away from the tools they had built to survive. I've often argued over the value of fiction versus non-fiction. Some people will tell you that fiction is a waste of time, that it's simply escapism, using up valuable hours that you could have devoted to learning something from someone's true real-world experience. But the best fictions, like Kenshi, are filled with truth. The great truth of Kenshi is that there are no evil people, just people doing inhumane, heinous acts because they have rationalized their unjust behavior. The Ochre Knights do not kill skeletons and enslave the Shek because they hate them. They do it because they love themselves, and they do what they must to survive. If you suddenly found yourself in a situation like theirs, make sure you don't mistake justification for justice.